This episode of the Golf Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds, WynnBET has what you need to win. So sign up today to bet $100 to get a $100 free bet at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. State restrictions apply. We also brought to you by the Mini Helmet Contest. The SGP Mini Helmets are now in the store, and we're giving one away for free. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/helmet. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/helmet. And we're also brought to you by our college football playoff props contest. $200 gift card to the winner, which is going on right now, exclusively on the SGPN app. All right, D-Gens, welcome back to the Golf Gambling Podcast. It is New Year's Eve right now. As maybe some of you guys who are in your upper 30s, you got young kids. I don't really have any plans for New Year's Eve. I do have plans tomorrow, though, so I will be unavailable. But here I am today, come to you live. Going to talk about Kapalua, Sentry Tournament Champions. Now, I'm well past the days of going to a douchebag club in Rochester, New York, and getting bottle service. But I'm going to try to make the best of it. So I do have a drink. Usually, I'm not the drinker of the show. Here we go. There you go. Got my little Master's glass right here, a little vodka seltzer. I've already had one in the tank. I'll be drinking that periodically throughout the show. And, we're going to kick off the PGA Tour season with a really good tournament, the Sentry Tournament Champions, one of my favorites on the schedule. I'll go into a lot of the reasons why I love that tournament, but it's a return to golf. We had the exhibition match between JT and Spieth and Tiger and Rory, which is kind of a dud. We had the Hero World Challenge, which I tend to like a lot, not like a lot of people do, but we've had a lot of really kind of crappy events in the fall, a lot of events that just didn't get us really excited. But here we are. We're going to kick it off with the Sentry Tournament Champions. Great field. They expanded the field too, which is kind of bullshit, but it only added just more good players into it. I guess that's not really such a bad thing. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that tonight. So, before we get to that, let's talk about WynnBET. So WynnBET is the official online sportsbook of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. WynnBET is active in a bunch of states, and there are a ton of ways to win, including live betting and same-game parlays. They have reduced juice on sides and totals for all bowl games day of. You got great promos, odds, and payouts that are happening right now at WynnBET. Right, are you ready to play? Sign up today and receive a special offer. Bet $100, win $100. It's limited state availability. There's so much to choose from. All you have to do is head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET so they know they sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions at WynnBET.com. Must be 21 or older and present in the state where playthrough WynnBET is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call Boston Capper. Call 1-800-522-4700. All right. Got to do another swig of the drink. Ooh, there we go. I think that's a little more than a double that poured. All right, let's talk about Kapalua. So this was always a great event. You had the winners of all the PGA Tour events going back to last calendar year. And I think anybody who won the Sentry Tournament Championship. So it's always been a good event. What the PGA Tour has been doing to try and combat LIV is figure out ways to generate more money and cash for its stars. And the best way to do that was take the guys that didn't win last year and say, you know what, as long as you made the FedEx Cup playoffs or FedEx Cup finals, make East Lake, you're allowed to play. It's similar to what they did back in the COVID era when it was a reduced schedule. So they just decided to just invite everybody. So, this isn't just the Sentry Tournament Champions anymore. It's kind of a shame. It's basically the Sentry Tournament Champions and guys who did other good things. Good. But you know what? It's fine. Like, we're going to have Hovland in there. We're going to have Morikawa playing. We're going to have Sungjae playing. We're going to have Cameron Young teeing off and bombing off at these 100 yard fairways, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But the only big name that isn't here, it's Rory. Rory is not playing the Sentry Tournament Champions. It's not really a huge surprise. He never usually plays this tournament. Usually skips the Hawaii swing. He's also going to go over, he's going to go over to him play in Hawaii, or not Hawaii. Jesus. How much vodka is in that? He's going to play in the Middle East in a couple weeks. We're going to see him at the Abu Dhabi HSBC Championship over at Yas Links. That's a really good, Middle East swing where you're going to get a lot of European tour players going over, maybe a couple of the bigger name American players as well. Going to go play over there. There's a lot of money. I mean, it's more money than the Amex or Sony's really going to offer, but that's when we're going to see him. But other than that, we're going to see Rahm. We're going to see Morikawa. We're going to see Justin Thomas. We're going to see Xander. We're going to see Cantlay. We're going to see pretty much every other big name you can think of in the world of golf coming to a really good golf course. And I'll just get into it right now. So my column's going to come out tomorrow. It's in, edit post right now. Basically, I've been too lazy to edit it so far. So in that column, I'll go through basically each hole. But for tonight, I just want to go over just why I love this tournament. First of all, it's the return of the PGA Tour. Living in Rochester, New York, where it's cold, it's snowy. It's usually nice to see Hawaii golf with great views of Molokai and the ocean, some blue whales splashing up and down, in the waves, going to commercial, prime time as well. It doesn't really beat a whole lot. It's nice. Like, I don't even really mind when it goes to commercial because I get the nice ukulele music. I got Mark Rolfing with Hawaii, facts, just strutting out at everybody with how much he knows about the island. It's great. Unfortunately, sometimes it's up against NFL playoffs, but, I'm still flipping over. I'm still checking in. It's a great field, great tournament. And honestly, it's at a great golf course too. Is there anything really special about, just take it for what it is, tee to green? Anything special about the green complexes? No. But, Core and Crenshaw, this is a feat of golf architecture. Just putting a golf course on literally the side of a mountain, literally a ski slope. So the highest point is a 17th tee box. That's about 560 feet in elevation above sea level. The lowest point is I think the second green, which is about 60 feet above sea level. That's a giant elevation change for a golf course. And the fact they're able to put a coherent routing on the side of a mountain that makes it playable for a lot of different types of players, makes it playable for me, makes it playable for the pros. It just, kudos to them. They really create a golf. There's not many golf courses on the PGA Tour where I actually want to go play it. Like, yeah, they'll go to, I don't know, TPC Twin Cities. I don't want to play that. I don't want to play PGA National. I have no desire to play Bay Hill, but Kapalua, I definitely do. I think that would be a wonderful round of golf. I think it'd be fun. You got really wide fairways, big greens. There's a lot of room to miss, but you also have these dramatic elevation changes, especially the downhill shots. You have great views of the ocean. Like, there's not really much that can beat that. And you're in great weather as well. A lot of fun shots, a lot of fun downhill shots over some canyons and some, like hazard areas that can be pretty, a nice challenge. The ball is going to roll out pretty nicely too down the hill. I just think it would be a lot of fun to go play. So, there's not, like I said, there's not many golf courses like that on the PGA Tour. This happens to be one of them. So, only take another break, and then this is going to be a short and sweet show. First of all, another break, another sip. Ooh. For anybody listening to podcasting, that's probably really bad radio. But anybody watching right now, hey, you get to see me drink a little bit while we're taking our break. And then let's actually go over some things you actually care about, some betting strategies. All right, let's talk about Underdog Fantasy. So we're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. At Underdog this season never ends right now. You can play their weekly Battle Royale games or even draft their playoff best ball team. They also have a ton of daily games for NBA and NHL. Plus, when you use the promo code SGPN at UnderdogFantasy.com, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100. It's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. All right, one more sip. There we go. All right, so let's talk about some betting strategies here. Let's talk about the grass type first. So this is wall-to-wall Bermuda. Specifically, the greens are a tip eagle Bermuda. We see that a lot of golf courses at the PGA Tour. We saw a couple of these at in the fall swing. Albany Golf Club, that is tip eagle Bermuda. Sea Island for the RSM Classic, that is also tip eagle. Bay Hill and PGA National, Bay Hill for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. PGA National for the Honda Classic, Tip Eagle Bermuda. So this strain of grass is better to be is pretty. Jesus, excuse me. It's cold resistant, which is kind of strange that this is actually in Hawaii. But that's the strain of Bermuda that they chose from here. Tee to Green, I think it's Champion Bermuda, which I believe is the Bermuda strain of the Houston Open at Memorial Park. So if you're somebody that really wants to get into the weeds as far as specific green types, grass types, you really want to match the Tip Eagle Bermuda to the, for your putting services to other courses, those are the 4 to use. Otherwise, though, usually Bermuda, I just look at just in general how you are just on Bermuda. There's, guys who grew up playing Bermuda, know how to putt on it. They know how to chip off of it. I guarantee when I go down to Florida in a couple months and play my brother-in-law's home course, off the team of my irons might be okay. I'm going to be messing around the greens and I'm not going to putt very well. Just have to accept it, being a Northeast creature, putting on bent POA and bent grass. But for handicap purposes, just look at Bermuda. So the Plantation course, though, itself is just under 7,600 yards long. I think it's 7,596. Par 73. I think there's 5 par 5s possibly. I don't know the exact number. I've been drinking. But it's par 73. That's part of the reason why every single year it's way under par, because, listen, a lot of these par 5s are par 4s. A lot of these par 4s are essentially par 3s, as we'll talk about a little bit. But the true yardage of each hole really depends if it's uphill, downhill, into the wind. You got the wind with you. You're going to hear a lot about the Kona winds this week from Mark Rolfing. I love it when he brings it up. That is the prevailing east-northeast wind. So a lot of holes are going to play into the wind. A lot of holes are going to play downwind. For example, I'm going to put this in the article. I put the overhead view from Google Earth. The 12th hole, that has the wind right at the players' backs. And that's the hole where you saw Dustin Johnson almost dunk it in for an ace from 420 yards. And you have Brandon Chambly call it the greatest shot in history of golf, which is a little bit extreme. But, listen, that's his opinion. But coming right back up the hill on the 13th, it's only 407 yards, but if you have a stiff east-northeast wind, you got a couple bunkers that I think are about 250, 260 over on the left and right. If it's a really stiff east-northeast wind between being uphill and into the wind, you're not really making the bunkers even. That can be one of the hardest holes on the PGA Tour. So it's funny enough, I think you see some they track on the PGA Tour. Some of the longest drives of the year have come on the 12th hole. Some of the shortest drives of the year coming on the 13th. That's kind of Kapalua in a nutshell. You're going to have extreme downhill shots where, you're going to hold a short iron in hand, but you're hitting 175 yards. You're going to have a long iron in hand, but it's extremely uphill into the wind, from 150. So there's a lot of different variety of approach shots you got to hit, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It's a shot maker's golf course. You're going to hear that a lot this week. It's just that's part of the reason why it's I think it's one of the better golf courses on the PGA Tour. So let's talk about the fairways and greens. So they're, like I said, they're wide. They're generous. Some fairways are almost 100 yards wide, and the 18th, I think, is like 95 yards wide. It's impossible to miss, unless you're like me, who's probably going to slice it, into the thick stuff on the left. The greens average just a little over 8,700 square feet in area. They're giant greens. And this explains why the driving accuracy and green regulation rates are north of 80%. And that's also the reason why this place is one of the easier setups on the PGA Tour. Field average is a little over 200 per round. Like I mentioned, being a par 73, that helps, having it be significantly under par. But just, anytime just in general, you give a professional wide fairways, big soft greens. A couple of years ago, they were firm because they had a renovation. Now with a bunch of foot traffic from tourists and, a couple venues or a couple tournaments here, they softened up a little bit. We saw it a little bit last year. These guys are going to get themselves, plenty of birdie opportunities. Excuse me, I had to have another drink. If there is a defense to the Plantation course, it's probably on the greens. Of all golf courses on the PGA Tour with at least 5 tournaments played since 2015, Kapalua features the 5th most difficult greens to putt on relative to strokes gained, as far as like expected strokes gained. There seems like there's a big challenge on putts over 5 feet in length. Might be a combination of the fact that these are slower greens. It's got some subtle undulations to them, not all that severe, but it's enough to give these guys some trouble, especially if the wind also is kind of whipping too. That can affect some of these putts. So, generally speaking, like I mentioned this in my Open Championship preview, which you can find all those major championship previews on sportsmanpodcast.com. Generally speaking, and with slower green speeds, I tend to shade a little more towards better putters. Looking at some of the past leaderboards, we'll look at last year's. It tends to be kind of the case that those types of guys, especially when there's a lot of birdies, like we probably will get again this year, the better putters usually rise to the top, unless you get like a Kyle Morikawa type that's going to just hit everything to within 10 feet and, he's never going to make a bogey. So now let's look at some types of approach shots these guys are going to hit it. So I'm going to have this chart from Data Golf. So if there are anything that's above average in rates, it's anything under 100 yards. That's higher than PGA Tour average, but it only makes up about 15% of all your approach shots. And then anything over 200 yards is higher than average in the PGA Tour, but that only makes up about, eyeballing it, about 30%. So 1 out of 3. So I guess that's a little significant, but like, I guess with this particular golf course, like I notice a lot of times when I read these charts is that there's a significant concentration that you want to look at. Like 60% of your shots are between like 125 and 175. It's a lot of the same types of shots over and over and over and over. And at that point, then I want to actually look at that bucket and say, okay, how close do you hit it to the pin? How do you score on those types of holes? Here, though, it's hard to get like a condensed enough range where you're getting a significant sample size to actually look at. Otherwise, I guess you could technically look at from like anything over 150, which covers 150, 175, 175, 200, 200 plus. But that only covers about 30, 43, 49, about 58% of your shots. There's still a lot there. Like 42% of your shots you're not looking at, in your handicap. So for me, I just look at just how you hit your irons in general. I like just targeting guys at this tournament that are just solid iron players through the bag. They're comfortable hitting good wedges. They're comfortable hitting good long approaches, just all around like solid games. And those tend to be the types that do pretty well at Kapalua. So I don't really want to pigeon myself into like, all right, I only want to hit like mid iron guys. I want to hit long iron guys. Like, as you'll see last year, there's all different golfers of walks of life that can do well here. And it's a testament to how Core and Crenshaw kind of set up this golf course. And you kind of see that a little bit in the relative skill set chart too. So there's a higher correlation. And again, this is in my column. There's a higher correlation in guys who tend to hit it a little farther that tend to have success here. But there's also a higher correlation of guys who are really good with their irons, pretty good around the green, and good putters. Basically, what that means is however you do to score around the golf course, whatever your strengths are, you are allowed to do that at Kapalua. Probably because the fairways are so wide, you're always hitting from the short grass, and the greens are so big that you're generally hitting a lot of greens. So it allows you to basically excel in your different strengths that you typically gain that you typically gain on the field, and you could do very well. So it's funny enough, that's kind of describes a little bit about Augusta National. Like, yeah, like, as they lengthened it, longer hitters have had an advantage, but that's a golf course where you have to do a lot of things well. You have to drive it well. You got to hit your irons well. More so at Augusta, it's more your longer approach shots. Here is basically through the bag. You got to be able to hit, shorter irons, long irons, hit it uphill, hit downhill, hit from side hill lies. You see that a lot of Augusta National too. And funny enough, I'll make mention again about this in a little bit. Data Golf has as its most correlated golf course to Kapalua as Augusta National. And I'll go over some list of guys who have done really well at Augusta and Kapalua. It's a pretty significant, comparison. So let's look at last year though. Now, so part of the reason that I think we got kind of a diverse leaderboard, I'm going to take a little break for a second, All right. So part of the reason why I think we had a pretty diverse leaderboard last year was because it was dead calm conditions and they got a lot of rain in December. Soft golf course, no wind. Anytime you get that situation, guys are going to eat it up. So the winning score last year was Cam Smith minus 34. Had that at 25-1. I was very happy about that. It's nice to start the year with an outright. I remember throughout that whole back nine, though, because that was when John Rahm was still considered like the big bad. Like he would just come off a massive 2021 where, yeah, he only won once, but he was just always in the mix. And just because he was just playing so good, and I just was just waiting for Cam Smith to just blow it. Probably because I had scar tissue from him at the Northern Trust when he hit one into the water while leading by 2, and then the playoff he hit one out of bounds. Regardless, so he ended up holding on. It was great. But you look at some of their, this top 10, and try and tell me where there's a correlation between anybody. Cam Smith 1, John Rahm is 2nd, Matt Jones, who I forgot about, is in 3rd. Cantlay in 4th. I guess this is one of the few Bermuda golf courses he actually can do well at is Kapalua. Go figure. Yeah, Justin Thomas, Daniel Berger, Kyle Morikawa, Kevin Kizzard, T5, all tied for T5, which that's kind of basically 4 different types of players and kind of do it differently. T8 for Sung Jae In, and T10 for Mark Leash and Cameron Davis. So a lot of different skill sets in that top 10. Starting Cam Smith. Not all that great usually off the tee, although in this tournament, he actually led the field off the tee in strokes gained that week. But he really improved with his iron, especially his shorter irons too, just hits those really close, and an absolute god around the green. Great putter. John Rahm, who's basically pretty much a very complete player, but probably one of the best, probably the best driver of the ball in the world, I would say, between his length and accuracy. That combo right there, he hits it the best. You would expect at this type of golf course that would actually neutralize him a bit because everybody's hitting fairways. Everybody is hitting it long, but he's really good with his irons. Great putter, usually a pretty good putter too. But that's it. But all right, we get to Matt Jones. Fairly longer hitter. At his best, he's usually a pretty good putter. It's weird that he was actually in the mix of this tournament at minus 32. That's insane. Because as my co-host usually puts it, he's only really good in wind. Wasn't the case here, but he was in the mix. Patrick Cantlay, again, another solid all-around good player. Justin Thomas, elite ball striker. Can have a little bit of trouble with his putter sometimes, but tee to green, really good. Daniel Berger, fairly accurate. He doesn't really have all that much pop. That's a guy who kind of hits or misses with his putter. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not, but he's really good in Bermuda usually. He's in there. Kyle Morikawa, #T no putt. He's in that top 10. Kevin Kizzard, who's basically the polar opposite of Kyle Morikawa, terrible ball striker, but all he can do is scramble and putt. You got Sung Jae again, kind of a very well-balanced player in general. You got Mark Leash when he actually was good and not on live and kind of didn't give two shits anymore. Again, another kind of well-balanced player, not all that great off the tee, but usually a pretty good long iron player, decent scrambler and putter too. And then Cam Davis, really good off the tee. His irons are okay, but he's a really good putter, though. So, diverse skill set right there. And that kind of explains just why there's a lot of parity at Kapalua. And it also makes it difficult, too, because not only is there a lot of parity at Kapalua, but we're coming off basically, this is their first tournament of the year. We haven't seen these guys in about a month. For a lot of these guys, we haven't seen them since the RSM. Or for a lot of these guys, we only saw them once. So, it's tough to gauge how exactly these guys are doing coming in, what their form is. There's not really a particular skill set here. It seems to work. It seems like whatever you do well, as long as that game kind of shows up and maybe some of your weaknesses actually can show up at one, here, and you can overcome them and maybe do a little well, that might be the difference. But that's what kind of makes handicapping this tournament tough. I mean, it's a great field. It's only 39 guys. But we're really only looking at, for odds purposes, outright winners, top 5, top 10s, maybe top 20, but those odds are probably going to be garbage. And you're looking way down the board too. You're looking at your Chad Ramies and Ryan Brems and those types of players that might actually have plus odds for top 20s. Otherwise, you're paying a significant juice for a top 20, which, my co-host has got, done sometimes. That's led to disaster for him. But I guess if there is something, and I may reference this a little bit while ago, that it seems like guys who are pretty good at Augusta National tend to do pretty well here. And there's a lot of examples, especially with some recent winners. So last year, Cameron Smith, 2022 winner. He's got 4 top 10s and 6 starts in the Masters, including 3 top 5 finishes. Maybe could have won the Masters if what happened on number 3 didn't happen, where he made, I think, 2 straight birdies. Scheffler, I think, bogeyed the first. But then Scheffler chipped in. Cam Smith made a mess of the hole. And that was it. You got 2017 champion and 2020 champion Justin Thomas. 2 top 10s in the last 3 starts of the Masters. He's somebody who's actually really improving at the Masters as we go on. 2019 Xander Schauffele. 2 top 3 finishes and 5 career starts. Yeah, Dustin Johnson, who's won Kapalua twice in 2013 and 2018. He's also the 2020 Masters champion. And he finishes the top 10 for 5 straight between 2015 and 2020. Jordan Spieth, 2016 champion, won the 2015 Masters. Patrick Reed, 2015 champion, won the 2018 Masters. Zach Johnson, 2007 Masters champion, also won in 2014. So, this list composes of a past champion, Dustin Johnson, and Zach Johnson. 2 polar opposite Johnsons to anybody. That just shows that really this is wide open. And the guys, I think, this week who, if you're a type of gambler that you don't use the databases, you don't use the spreadsheets, you rely on gut feel, you think this guy's going to show up, you look at an odds board, you look at where the numbers are, and you just have a feeling like this guy's mispriced. This week is for you. This is your Super Bowl, the first one out of the gates, because you got spreadsheet guys like me that are still going to look at stuff that happened 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 4 months ago, and think it's gospel. We're going to refer to it this week. It might mean jack shit. So maybe I need to take a page out of my co-host and abandon all that stuff and kind of just go from the gut, go from the heart, maybe make those picks this week. So that's it. That's the end of the podcast. It was short and sweet. If you're happen to be watching, happy New Year's Eve to you. We're moving out of 2022, moving on to 2023. We're going to have big things. If you happen to have a drink in front of you, I cheers you. A little shot of SoCo. Here we go. There we go. So, all right. Thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful evening. Have a very safe New Year's. Take it easy.